Yeah, hey, you've reached the head coach's corner. Chalk Talk with Coach Flo, we're calling this. Appreciate you spending some time. We're going to talk some football. And I'm going to, just briefly, I've been working in college for 27 years, between being a head football coach and being an offensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator and all those types of things, and I've coached every position on the offensive side of the ball. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some time, a little time each week, talk a little football. We'll talk some offense. We'll talk some special teams. We'll change it up week in and week out, and hopefully get some good feedback out there. Been doing this a long enough time. I'm not one to say that I know it all. I've done a lot of research. I've had a lot of really great coaches. I've had a lot of really great mentors. I've learned a lot of really great things. And what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about an empty passing concept that I really liked, that I enjoyed running in my time when I was the head football coach at William Patterson University. Just tell you a quick synopsis, a little quick about myself. Played football at Iona College in New Rochelle in the late '80s. Played for Coach Crocker. Started coaching as a student worker. Worked there until '97. Left there in '97. Went to FDU Madison and Morristown in '98. Went back to Iona in '99. Worked with Fred Mariani from '99 to '01. Had a great experience. Coordinated the special teams. Coached the receivers. Went back at my alma mater. And then in '02, I had a great opportunity to go to William Patterson. I had worked for Larry Arrico at FDU Madison the one season. He had been over at William Patterson. I'd gotten a chance to meet Phil Longo. Phil had recommended me for the position, and from there, I spent all my time from '02 to '17 there. From '02 to '07, I was an assistant. Worked under Rico's staff. Then Coach Mike Miello came in from Rutgers. Worked with him for 3 years. Amazing experience working with him, Eddie Stinson, and a great group of coaches. Coach stepped down at the end of the '07 season. I took over in '08 as the interim head coach, and coached there as a head coach until '17. Amassed 33 wins, which is second all time to Jerry Gallagher, who's in the Hall of Fame at William Patterson. And just an amazing experience. Had 125 seniors in 10 years, and a lot of guys doing real well now, coaching wise. I actually just posted my coaching tree, which will be on my website, which will be on this video, which is jfcamps.com. Pretty extensive coaching tree of coaches that are coaching high school football, college football on all levels. Also got some student workers and some young men that are working in the NFL. So been doing this a long time, been around a lot of people. And I thought this was an opportunity to talk some football. And you can shoot me questions you have, answers. I'll try and be as thorough as possible. We'll spend probably close to about 25 or so minutes here going through the introductory concept. What I'm going to do is, what I did was I kind of posted here on the board. We're going to start with just some general stuff in terms of how we in my time at William Patterson as the offensive coordinator call the offense. So you can call it any way you want. This is how we called it. Like I said, I probably stole a lot of this stuff from other people, research wise. So we ran a West Coast offense that then derived into a West Coast no huddle, and then we made it more of a spread. But we always kind of kept the West Coast philosophy. The West Coast philosophy, in my mind, had always been a tight end. You always had a tight end in, played with a flanker and a split end, had a slot. You were multi-dimensional running backs. You could take your running backs, you could put them in slots. You can move them out as receivers. You don't really have to change your personnel and go to a 4-5 wide set. So a lot of the running backs we recruited, we knew were good pass receivers because we put them out in a route a lot. We were looking for guys that were going to catch 50 balls over the course of the season and probably run 50 times, touch the ball 100 times. So that's kind of the West Coast offense. The offense in my first 7 out of 10 years at William Patterson, produced 3 quarterbacks. The first quarterback, Matt Marshall, broke a ton of records quarterback-wise. He became the all-time leading passer. He graduated. Ryan Gressick came in from Newton up in Morris County. He was with me for 5 years. He became the all-time leading passer. And then we brought in Austin Fellows down from Central Jersey, and he had a great freshman campaign, and he was Rookie of the Year. So, we're trying to do with the West Coast system is you're really trying to spread the ball sideline to sideline. You're trying to spread the ball sideline to sideline. Pretty much, we go with like a 15-yard box from the line of scrimmage. A lot of short passes, flat routes, swing routes, spot routes, hitch routes, slant routes. A lot of short stuff. Short, pick. Always tell the quarterback, take what the defense gives you. And that's what we did. We just took the short stuff. And then what would happen would be we'd play teams, then we'd come up and play press, and then that's when we take our shots. So we tried to dictate the pace, obviously running the ball, which we'll talk about a little bit. And we're going to try and do a pass concept. I'll do a run concept with you, and then we'll on a different video. And then I'll come back and we'll do a little special teams, talk special teams as well. You can ask whatever questions you want. So just kind of diving in here a little bit. It's a route tree. You could do this 2 different ways. We did it as a route tree. We also did it as code words. If you want to go really, really fast and not have wristbands, which we've done, you could have a code word. So I'll show you in a second when I draw up the play, what the code word is and then what the route tree is. The route tree is real simple. 0 down to 9. Your odd numbers were routes that went inside. Your odd numbers were the routes that went inside, and your even numbers were the ones that went outside, with the exception of 3 out. Yeah, somewhat. So you got the 0 was a fade, the 1 cut was a 6-yard hitch, the 2, 3. So 0, 1, 2, and 3 were your 3-step routes. Your quarterback, taking a 3-step drop and throwing the ball. We always said 6 yards. We always said pretty much 6 coming back to 5.5. If it was a hitch, so he would plant and come back downhill, and the ball would be in his chest. The timing always worked out where the quarterback would take 1, 2, 3 and throw the ball. There was no wasted time. There was no wasted steps. If you were throwing a hitch, if you were throwing a slant, 1, 2, 3, throw the ball. If you were throwing an out, 1, 2, 3, throw the out. Now the difference with the out was, the out wasn't a square out, it was a round out. So, it would be at about 5.5, you round yourself into the route, as opposed to running a square out. The timing just worked better with the round out. So that's how we called that. 4 cut, now you start to get into a little bit more 5-step concept. Your 4 cut was a 8 to 10 yard out, rolling into that 10 yard out of 8. Your 5 cut was a 12 to 10 yard curl, pretty much just a double route of the hitch. So your hitch was really 6 coming back to 5.5. Well, your 5 cut was 12 coming back to 10. Your quarterback's taking a 5-step drop on that. The 6 cut was a comeback. He's throwing it to the sideline, 14 coming back to 12. Your 7 cut was a dig. So he would stem on the dig route. The receiver would stem inside if he had press coverage, get vertical, and then 14, and then 12 to 14 meant 12, 14. So he'd be 12 here, he'd be 14 there. So he'd be running pretty much like a post dig, is what we called it. And then you get your corner out. We said 10 to 12. What we meant there was same type of thing. You get a stem, you come here. At 10, you stick it here, and 12, you stick it there. So you always stick your routes. They weren't rounding into the routes. They were sticking the routes. And then 9 was a skinny post. It was a 9 cut. So you could call the routes that way. So I'll leave it up here for a second if you want to write this down, because you'll see in a second when I talk to you about the route concept, you could call it 2 different ways. If you want to go with wristbands, like I said, which we've done, we would have it on the wristband, and we would just signal in wristband play number 55. And then, the players would look on the wristband, they see 55, and they see the route tree. well, they'd see the play call using the route tree. If you want to go really fast, then you use a code word. And then the players then have to know the whole play with the code word, which I'll talk to you about in a second. So that's what that was. Then you have colors. We use colors too to designate certain packages. So for example, if we're going to throw a 3-step, we use green and red. We always said red, use the R to the right, green would be to the left. So that helped us with pass protection as well, which I'll talk to you about in a second, what that meant, what the quarterback's read was. The color usually told the quarterback what side he was throwing to, where the read side was, and it told the line what the protection was. So there's a lot of things that were said with just one word, which obviously a lot of people are pushing now, the one-word type of system. So you had the colors, and then you get other colors. Orange was play action, yellow was misdirection, black and brown was run. So our running plays were brown, use the R and brown to the right, use the L and black to the left. Just simple stuff, make it easy for the players. And a lot of times on the wristband, we'd have it sectioned where the running plays to the right were colored in brown on the right side of the wristband. The colors in black, the color on the left side of the wristband was colored in black. So the players knew immediately. They looked at the wristband. Once they looked at the left side of the wristband, they knew what the play was. They knew it was going to the left. Okay, so that's how your colors work out. And then what I wrote up here is code words that we use for our 3-step concepts. For them, so our 3-step concepts, we use college football teams. So 0 route was a fade, 1 cut was a hitch, the 2 was a slant, the 3 was an out. So we use Fordham, Harvard, Syracuse, and Oklahoma. And there was a concept. So if you're going to run double fades, and double outs, then that was Fordham. There were complementary routes, which you ran to one side, you ran to the other side. That was out of a 2x2 set. If you were going to run Harvard, which was hitches, you were going to run hitches on the outside and seams in the middle, which are pretty much the seam routes on the hash. If you were going to Syracuse, which was a 2-cut, you had double slant and double diagonal. And we'll get into all that stuff. If you had out cut, Oklahoma, you had double out, double seams. So 3 and 1 were the same for the inside guy, just different for the outside guy. And that meant we mirrored it. So we would run one concept to the right, one concept to the left. So it was the same concept. And why we do that was if we came out, we called red, and we were throwing to the right, and maybe we were getting some sort of quarter, half, and we didn't like what we saw to the right, we didn't have to check out of the play, get to another play. Quarterback now could revert to the left. He could just change the color. He could say check opposite, change the protection, and we throw to the left. All right? So that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of the route tree, using some code words. A lot of stuff you've heard. A lot of this stuff is just a lot of different. Everyone's picking something up from someone else. I've been fortunate from 2008 to 2017. We pretty much ran this type of system. My last 3 years, we ran a little bit more triple option because our talent, or I wouldn't say our personnel, kind of changed in terms of what we had with more running backs. This offense is critical if you have a tight end. If you have a tight end, you can run the West Coast offense as far as I'm concerned. You'd love to have 2 and 3 tight ends. So you have multiple packages, very similar to what you see on TV in the NFL with the teams in the NFL that use multiple packages. Tennessee's a perfect example. 2, 3 tight ends. A lot of that's that West Coast system. So one tight end is ideal because it allows you to do some things, which I'll show you in a second. All right, that's why when teams started to derive to the spread, I kind of pulled the tight end out and put another receiver in. All right, so I'll just move to the side for a second so you can jot this down if you want. But like I said, if you have any questions, you shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and I'll try and help you out. Like I said, had the opportunity. 2017, I'm sorry, I forgot one season. 2017 season was my last season at William Patterson. I was still working full-time at William Patterson till the end of this past spring. So the 2018 season, I worked at Kane for my buddy Danny Garrett. and I was the offensive coordinator there for him. So I got a chance to learn, a little bit different system, but work with some great guys and some great young men. So just trying to give back now to the game based on kind of where I'm at. Okay? So we're going to move on to the next thing, which is the concept we're going to talk about for today. So, we draw up the formation for you. I'm going to draw up the defense. We're going to just start with a 2 shell and an Okie, 3-4. Sam, Mike, Will, Buck. Okay? Okay, so we're just going to start off real simple. Okay, so I kind of went into talked about all the, there's so many more pieces to the overall concept of the offense that I'm privy to. And a lot of this, like I said, I should take a step back. It was a good evolution of years for me personally, because I'd gone from a run and shoot system as a player with Rob Spence, Coach Crocker. I'd then gone to working with Coach Rico at FDU, who played for Coach Mariani at Lehigh. He was running a little bit at West Coast, multiple stuff. Then I had gone to work with Coach Mariani the next 3 years. He was running that multiple stuff. Took a lot of that stuff back to William Patterson when I did that with Coach Rico again. Then when Coach Mielo came in, we were a little bit more standard personnel. And then, we kind of derived to that. So it's kind of been there the whole time. We just, and we've been very fortunate to have some pretty good tight ends to help us with the game. So what we got here is real simple. We would call this formation for us, we would call Ruby. Can't spell, okay? We'd call it Ruby. That was just a formation for empty for us. I'll go through. Obviously there's your flanker. Your Z's your flanker. You got your split end. You got your third receiver. We call him a W. You got your tight end. You got your quarterback. You got your R. Now your R is actually your running back. So kind of getting back to what I was saying before, it allows you to stay in 10 personnel and not have to take a guy out and then the defense changes their personnel. It allows you to do things. You can run jet sweep with him. You can put him in motion and run zone read. You can run quarterback read. There's so many things you can do without having to change the personnel. I know so many people hung up on if you got this guy, this R or T, he can run and he can catch and he can block. And those are the types of guys you want in your system, because it just makes it that much harder to defend. And then obviously the more guys you have, you don't need this guy. You don't need a W now. Now if you have a two-headed monster, a tailback, maybe one guy's a really good runner, maybe one guy's a really good receiver. I always tell you, put the receiver to the strong side, put the runner to the weak side. Makes sense, because you can run jet sweep in this side with two good blockers going to the right. You got your standard 3-4 defense, okay? And we got a simple empty concept, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about for today, all right? And the empty concept is really simple. And I'm going to talk as slow as I possibly can to help you understand why, okay? What we're calling it is, it's going to be called 2-whip, 9, 5, get open. All right, so instead of GO, I'm not going to abbreviate. Okay, or the name of this would be we would do it would be 55 as a number, so you can use a number for it, or you could just say the code word for this is cross and whip. So cross and whip are two different options. So there's a cross concept, there's a whip concept. So the whip was Wisconsin. So there's a bunch of different ways you can go about doing it. So you're going to use a wristband We call it 2-whip, 9-5 get open. And the routes were always you always read the route concepts. The first part of the actual wording was always the 2 inside most guys. So if you were in a 2x2 set, it would be the 2 guys. It was a 3x1 set, there'd be no inside guy. It would be the number 3 guy and the outside guy. So in this concept, because it's empty, your 2 inside guys, and we would number them. We would say he's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we always said that going right to, it was always strong side. So if you went Ruby left, it'd be 1 to 5 going left to right. If it's Ruby right, it's 1 to 5 going right to left. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Okay? So 2-whip is going to be in this concept between 3 and 4. Because they're the 2 inside most guys on the formation. Then you read the routes from strong side to weak side. So here's your 9. Okay? Here's your 5. And here's your get open. Okay? So in this particular concept, the players knew that they wanted to be the W. Because he was the primary read in this concept. So that's how they just knew that it couldn't be 9-5 get open, because you wouldn't have an outside receiver run a get open route, which I'll talk to you about in a second. Okay? So that was the way to call it when you had it on a wristband. So this would be on the wristband, and with the color for empty for us was maroon. So on the wristband, it would be colored in maroon. It would say 2-whip, 9-5, get open. You want to go really, really fast, you don't have a lot of time, you go 55 Wisconsin. And that's the difference. 55 Wisconsin. Why would you say 55 Wisconsin? Because 5 would tell everybody that we're in a 5-out system. Means 5 guys out in a route. It would tell the line, the second 5 would say there's only 5 guys protecting. So that's what 55 was. And Wisconsin was the route. And you just knew that Wisconsin meant 2-whip, 9-5, get open. So that's when, you got players that really buy into the system and they really get it. I've found that players will pick that stuff up. People say, oh, well, how are they going to remember that? Well, they remember that. And then there's a hand signal for all this. So, we would, for us, if we wanted to run cross, we would do that. If we wanted to run whip, we'd do that. So if you want to do 55, for us, or empty protection, we put, if we were going to signal it from the sideline, we'd go here, hands up on our head like this, and that told them that we were going to be in maroon, and then we'd go chest here, and then we'd do this. So this should tell you it's 55 maroon, 55 whip. And that was the concept. And that's if you're in a 2-minute system and you want to try and go really fast. So the concept really is simple. What you're doing here is you're trying to read this window. Now, obviously, team's not going to play cover 2 to this. They may bring this guy down, move this guy over. There's other things they can do. But I've in my time have seen teams even come out and play quarters on the snap of the ball. So what happens here is, first we'll talk about the route. What you're getting is a 2-whip concept. So the tight end is to the strong side. So he would always be the deeper guy and on a cross route. And the R, who's on the weak side, would be the under guy in a cross route. But because there's no cross, they're pretty much running to a point. We used to teach them, run like you're coming across the field where you could tap the guy's hand and go back. So this guy here would take an inside release if he had a Sam, because he would be a 5 technique here. And he would get to a depth of about 6 yards, and he'd whip back flat. This R, we would usually have him off the ball because we could motion him a little bit back and forth. And we would do that to see if it was man or zone. But we would tell that R to line up about 2 yards from the end man on the line so that he could do the same thing and return. Okay? Your 9 was your skinny post. So he's getting vertical to 10, speed post. Your 5 was concept 5. Now understand this. This route, I'll tell you can figure out a way to run this route. You can convert every 3rd down conversion. You got a guy back here that can make the right read, you're in good shape. Because this is, especially against the cover 2 look, you can see the window to throw the ball. Understand your Z receiver, if you got your, used to do it was, your X was the guy that could take the top off the coverage. He was your fast guy, because a lot of times he's your weak side guy. Your Z was your possession guy that can catch the ball. So if this guy keeps this route skinny, he's got this guy and this guy covered. And if this guy's a threat to go vertical, well, he's got to bail out in the snap of the ball because he's got to be aware of the deep route. That opens up middle field. You got double crossing routes. These guys are going to squeeze and then they're going to return. That's where this guy comes into play. Now, if this Sam is on the ball, fine. But more than likely, he's going to be out here, inside. That's why we call it a get open route. So you want to get vertical, 1, 2, 3, stick here to make it look like you're running out and come underneath. The quarterback's read, the quarterback would take the snap. Even though it's a 5-step concept, it would be a 3-step read. He's reading right in this window. This over here is only if there was blitz. If he felt uncomfortable, I got to tell you, probably in all the years I ran this route, I don't know if I had a quarterback throw over here once. This route was meant if you wanted to check to a 3-step concept on the backside, like an exit route. So if this guy was squat and this guy was bailing pre-snap and you weren't really comfortable and you wanted to throw a hitch, he could turn to the X on the left, give him some sort of hand signal, abort everything to the right, take the snap and throw the ball to the left. That's what that route was for. But we wanted to run a curl to keep him honest. Okay? And then the quarterback's taking the snap and he's going 1, 2, 3. He's taking 3 steps. He's taking a snap. He's going 1, 2, 3. So he's now in line to throw. If he's a righty, he's in line to throw to the right. And what's happening is he's reading this guy. Okay, we call that, Coach Hickey, my quarterback's coach, for a number of years, and then Coach Gressick, who worked for me, we call it a Holly Barry read. You know, based on kind of, you know, you see his front, you see the front, you see the back, whatever this person opens up. Okay, so basically what you're looking for is you're looking for this defender to open and turn. Receiver goes underneath. That's where the ball gets thrown. So if you see his back, you're banging the ball in there. If you see his front, now you got to bypass that and either throw the post or one of the whips. More than likely, it's going to be the post. But we would always, for the most part, this guy here was a dynamic player for us. You know, we ran a lot of go out, go out, go out, or go bubble, or go. So this guy was always opening to cover this. So the quarterback then would bang it right here in the hole. Sometimes he may carry it. Then this guy break it off and come here in the middle of the field. You can see the hole in the middle of the field. Really great against cover 2. And that's, you know, that's a concept of that. So now from a protection standpoint, because it's funny, you know, I was always, you know, always being an offensive guy. You know, when I played offensive tackle, so you know, I always thought of plays. When I thought of plays, I thought, well, how to protect it first. You know, and then as I became a head coach, it was funny. I'd interview guys, I'd talk to guys, and all they would talk about all these glorious concepts. And I said, okay, how are you going to protect that? And they look at you. So if you can't protect it, you can't throw it. Okay, so here you go. You got your 55 concept, which meant 5 guys out on the route. Those are the first 5. The second 5 told the quarterback, told the line, 5-man protection. So what we did was if you had 5s on you, it didn't matter if they were 5s or 4s. All right? These tackles here were required to pass that. So although it was a 5-step concept, they would get in their stance, they would kick off the line one good step, and then they would play aggressive football. So in this particular concept, they knew that it wasn't necessarily 5. It was more of a 3-step type of variety. But he'd kick and he'd get the end, nose, and then these guys would dual read. Our guards were usually our better athletes up front, offensive line wise. Not necessarily, I shouldn't say that, because you know, playing tackle, you got to have good athletes too. You just got to be smart enough to understand. So we would double read it. So maybe he'd come out here, look here, to here. Didn't matter because that was the quarterback's read. So if that guy blitzed, the quarterback threw the ball. All right, same thing here. He would step here, look 1 to 2. All right, in this particular look, based on the way it is, you're just going to get a 5-man rush. You know, if they send the guy, if they send the 6th guy, all right, which we'll talk about in a second, okay, then the quarterback's got to adjust his read, so to speak. So, for example, if and I'll bring it up now, if a team were to do this and send him, and this guy was running a whip, this guy would know, we would practice it, that he would stop right here. And the quarterback would see 2 coming here, and the quarterback, instead of going to this side, he'd immediately see this and boom, throw the ball right there. And we'll just take the 2 yards. Okay? Such a 2-whip, 9-5, get open concept. All right? And then, like I said, that's how you would call it. Always remember, you're calling the route 2-whip. Inside most guys, in this case it's number 3 and 4, and so on and so forth. All right, so I'm going to just draw this up against a 4-man front, protection-wise. Okay, so now you got a 4-man box. All right, now I said something earlier about your tight end. The reason why it's beautiful to have a tight end in this system is because if you want to keep the tight end the block and have an extra blocker, it kind of messes around with the defense a little bit, especially if he's on the ball. So if you're going to protect this, we tell our tackle on or outside, he's got him. On or outside, he's got him. He's here, and then these 2 guys would be responsible for those 2 guys. Okay? So if we were going to protect this just the way it was, with no roll downs or anything like that, we know all that other stuff is going to happen. We'll talk about that. We're just kind of giving you the generic sense of it. That was the protection. Okay? All right. So now let's just talk about the cross concept. And then we'll talk about rolling the coverage, and then we're done for today. So the cross concept you call it the same way. Now it's called 2 cross, 9-5 GO, abbreviate, or 55 cross, or Cleveland. Okay, cross, and then the code word was Cleveland, and just like you had Wisconsin, so if the quarterback was on the line of scrimmage, for example, before, and we were going to run jet sweep, and he wanted to check out of it, he'd go easy, easy, easy. I mean, we're checking the play. He'd go maroon 55 Wisconsin. Now, like I said before, if you look at that, you think maroon, okay, it's an empty concept. The line now knows they got to block those 5 guys. That's what that 55. Now Wisconsin told them what the route was. 2 inside most guys whip. You get a skinny post, a curl, and a get open route. Okay, now you got your cross concept. So same thing. We asked that R to be in tight. We asked him to be about 2 yards from the end man on the line of scrimmage. Now, we said, if you remember what I said before, we said that we want the strong side guy, in this case, because it's Ruby right, strength of the formation is this way, he's going to be over the route. He sets the depth of the route. The depth is about 6. We always tell the tight end that's setting the depth, when we teach the progression, it's under, over, under, over. You always tell that to the tight end. Under, over, under, over. Under meant under him, but you want to try and get over him. All right? Under him, over him, just like this. So he's at 6, and he's at 5.5. So the tight end, because he's a strength guy, he sets the depth. The R guy sets the mesh. So we wanted them to come to the point where they were brushing shoulders. No space. Got to understand, with the whip, it's about running the whip all the way in and whipping out to the point where they're smacking hands. With the cross, it's about running to the point where they're hitting shoulder to shoulder. Okay? Here you got your 9. Skinny. Not over here. Why keep it skinny so you can occupy these two guys? You got your 5. Keep it tight. Want to occupy these two guys. And here's your get open route. That's your read. Quarterback's read's right there. All right, so if they want to send a game here and they want to switch, you got to practice with your line. Switch calls. When I was at Kane that spring, we probably spent a good 10, 15 minutes of practice. Me and Joe Bick, my great assistant, we spent switches to all ends. So just because he's out here in a 9 and he's got him doesn't mean that. Now, more than likely, he's not going to slant all the way in here. But if he's in a 3, he could do this and he could do that. If he's in a 2-eye, he may not come across here. He may stay here, but he could do this, or he could go here and he could. So you're going to see games. You're going to see games. Teams are just not going to stand there. That's not what defenses do. All right. So now your concept, same concept. So this guy would get vertical at about 3 steps, and he starts to bend like he's going outside, like he's running an 8 to 10 yard route. We get him to open up, and bang. Here's the throw right here. So now because of cross, you have a better option. So with whip, he's reading get open to post to whip, because the whip comes last. It clears out last, but more than likely it's going to be get open to post. With the cross, now he's reading, because of how it happens, here to here to here. So because it happens quicker, so now the R is actually in play. We don't really throw the Y because he's going back in the other direction. All right. Now, I'll show you something really, really sneaky. So, what teams started to do to us to take this away, and we got Ryan Gressick, our quarterback at the time, did a really nice job. I think it was Morrisville a couple of years ago, a long time ago. Sorry, a couple of years ago. And then we'll end on this note for today. So what happened was, then teams started to get a little antsy. They're like, we don't want you to get that crossing route. We don't want that get open route to be open. We're going to force you to throw a post. Well, now you need a guy back here that's got a set. He's got to get enough reps in practice where he sees it, and he sees that safety coming down the route where they're going from some sort of quarters to cover 1, or they're going from some sort of cover 2 to 0, whatever the case is. So, and you'll see, like if this guy watches enough film, he'll know that teams will do this. Sometimes you'll see this safety here shade more on the end of the tackle, so you know that they're going to roll the covers. There's keys you'll look for. If you see this guy, maybe they're at different levels. He's higher, he's lower, stuff like that. So he still goes through his reads. So let's say it's 2 cross. He's under, he's over. He's under, he's over. Here's your get open. It's not as exaggerated. Here's a skinny post. Here's a curl. Now what started to happen is, and I think we hit for a couple of touchdowns later in the season in 2013 or 14, is now what happened was this backer here was on the ball. He would drop, okay? He would bail. So they would go to like a cover 3 shell almost. Where now a 3 robber where he was shooting to take that away, he would drop. So their goal was to take that route away. So now the quarterback, the Z receiver, I always tell players that there's the goalpost. When you run a skinny post, you should be outside the goalpost, as opposed to a post route where you want to be at the post. So we said run a post, we wanted you to run to the outside goalpost. So we said skinny, you should be outside the goalpost. So now what was happening was, we'd do some sort of game here. We would have it all blocked up. We had 5-man protection. They were just rocking the coverage, and they were bringing this guy in here to take this away. And sure enough, bam, we throw the ball right here. Hit that skinny post. Morrisville game, 2013 or 14, we hit that twice for touchdowns. And the safety just couldn't get over in enough time. Now, obviously, if your quarterback throws the ball here, now the safety can get over there. But if your receiver runs the right route, you practice this enough time. That's why you run the 9 cut. The guy, like, sometimes the guy like, well, why is he running a 9 cut? You're wasting a route. No, you run the 9 cut so you want to try and occupy 2 defenders. That's what I said earlier about the West Coast offense, what we're trying to do. We're trying to spread the field vertically and horizontally in roughly a 20-yard box. So under routes, cross routes, swing routes, whip routes, spot routes, slant routes, out routes, you name it. That's what we're banging in this box. So you're going to come out, and we used to tell the quarterback all the time, you may get 6, you may get 4, you may get 8, you may get 2, you may get 1, you may get a negative, and after a while, you're going to get the 35-yarder. And, everyone wants the 35-yarder, but, perfect example. I mean, look at Kansas City. Kansas City's a perfect example against Tennessee. They took all the short stuff. Quarterback scrambled. They took the out stuff. They took the outside. They took it all. And what they were trying to do is get Tennessee to get into man coverage. When they got into man coverage, they had an advantage. If you got a guy out here and a guy out here that can catch the ball, you got an advantage. We had a young man there for a couple of years that was the all-time leading receiver at William Patterson, back-to-back guys. The second guy got a tryout with the Jets. This guy over here, very good player. So if you got 2 guys out there that are good players, then teams got to, they got to make a decision. Got to make a decision. But at the end of the day, all this window dressing is to try and get the ball here. So if it's zone, and you run this route, so let me talk about that. If it's man, they continue across the field. If it's zone, then you got to settle down. We tell these guys, settle down between the backer and the backer. So they would run across the field, they would turn and stop and settle. And now the quarterback could look right in the window. He's right here looking to throw the ball. Okay? And that's why we used to put him at 2 yards to put him in motion and back sometimes, because why? You'd be able to tell if it's man or zone. Sometimes teams would tip the hat. If you go in motion, this guy goes with you. It's man. Okay, so once again, this is our concept. We're calling this 2 cross, 9-5, get open. In this particular personnel, because we have 1 running back and 1 tight end, we'd call this 11 personnel, which basically means 1 tight end, one running back. We would like to try and stay in the set as much as possible, because it allows us then to motion him in the backfield and then run powers and counters and jet sweeps and all that stuff. And then if we can get this guy here as a runner too, that would be a traditional 21 personnel, which is a typical pro personnel. It's amazing what you can do with standard personnel. I mean, when you don't have all those receivers, this is what you want to look at. When you don't have all those tight ends, when you take this guy out and you put another receiver in. That's why we call it a multiple West Coast offense. And that'll be on the screen when you see it on the YouTube channel. You'll see kind of my experience. And like I said, I'm not trying to think I know more than everyone else. I'm just sharing with you some of the stuff that I've learned over the years. This route here was bread and butter for us. It was always at an empty. It was always at a Ruby. It was just a matter of maybe we had a receiver, maybe he was on the line or off the line. And you called it, like I said, 3 different things. You call it 2 whip, 9-5 get open, or you could call it 55 Wisconsin, or you can call it 2 cross, 9-5 get open. You call that 55 Cleveland. And then you always use the color maroon, and then that told everyone maroon was going to be an empty concept. So think about this again, and we'll end on this. So if we said maroon 55 was Ruby right, maroon 55 Cleveland, then maroon told us we were an empty, 55 said it was a 5-man out, 5-man protection, Cleveland, and because it was Ruby right, he was reading to the right. All right, so hopefully you got something out of today's session, and like I said, I hope if you have questions, you just shoot me information. I'll have my email on there, and what we'll do is we'll come back. I'll come back the next time, and we'll put some variations off of this. We'll show you some different look protection-wise next week off of this, and then from there we'll move to a little run. We'll do a little running concept, and then from there we'll go to a special team. So we'll do a pass, we'll do a run, we'll do some special teams. All right, once again, Jerry Flora, Chalk Talk with Coach Flo. Peace out.